Okay, Will, you said you had another question you wanted to ask?
Yeah, I'd say after talking a little bit more, I'm kind of curious to hear a little bit more of day to day behaviors and things that were just a part of his routine life. What were some hobbies or habits that, uh, besides things oriented around the arts and photography, that Poppy maintained throughout his life?
Well, uh, well, just for people looking, I mean, the camera was an integral part of him from an early age, and uh, he was a photography editor on his school newspaper. He went out to California between high school and college with a camera around his neck, taking photographs. And then, family photographs. He was more into people. I was more into things. Not that I photographed until I met him. And then we would very often see things. Now when we're looking, now I talk about eye catchers. The same things would catch our eye often, but our interpretation was slightly different. But we never argued about it or anything like that. We were both open to how it is seeing things, the same thing, and in slightly different ways, and that's perfect. So he was actually a great writer, although I don't know that he thought about it. He was in textiles. He designed, I think he designed weaves for, well, mainly fiberglass fabric. And when I knew him, and he set up how the looms were going to be, and how they, what they operate, the different yarns and things. Mill was in Statesville, North Carolina. And I mean, these are odd memories that come up, but the first thing that I remember, the first year we were married, I slept with when he went down with his gold sweater. And part of me is he was down there. And I guess it was 3 or 4 months after we were married, he was down south, and we had this first huge snowstorm in New York. And I actually had to walk almost the level of cars to bring him boot galoshes at the subway when he came home. And I think I'm getting diverse. I think I mentioned to you that we wrote daily. He wrote some beautiful things. He didn't sit down specifically to write, but when he wrote very well. I mean, he loved his kids, walking nature. He would do the planning when we went traveling later on. I hated to plan, and he would organize and do all that, which was really great. And then I need the after effect. He was very supportive of me. We put a dark room. Well, we lived in an apartment for 5 years. I think he might have even created a kitchen dark room to develop some of his films in Queens. And that was important to him, black and white. And he actually, although he learned this, he became proficient. He was stationed in a hospital in Heidelberg when he was in the Army. And Oscar Cleese was, what was Oscar? Oscar Cleese was in the, like head of the lab. I don't know. And actually, he worked in the mailroom when he was in the Army. But he would go weekends, he would go into the darkroom and got really very proficient in darkroom work, and actually even sent home for negatives, old negatives from his California days to be redeveloped in them. And he toured around Europe and got wonderful photos. So photography was always like an integral part of him. He became newsletter editor for 4 years, I think. I don't know if you've ever seen those. I have them bound in a book in our synagogue. And I helped work with him a little bit on that. He became active in B'nai B'rith. I think he was an officer. And he was active in synagogue mainly in that. There are more? Am I missing something?
What about athletics? My dad mentioned him loving baseball, I think. And
Oh, yeah, he was a huge Phillies and Mets fan and took the kids to uh, would take the kids to games. And they actually, kids are young, you have to ask your father about it. They wrote a letter to the editor about their fathers for Father's Day. Well, I don't know the editor, but anyway, they won for their letter about him as the best father, and they got tickets to a ball game. I never got involved in the sports, but he was there. He also was a scout leader when they were in Cub Scouts. There was some kind of creative program that he taught in for kids. And weekend, some kind of special grant program.
he sounds very, I don't know, just like an all-around, all-American dad. Cared a lot about people near and dear to him, wanted to make sure everyone's life was enhanced.
He cared about people, period. Yeah, near and dear to him, and he would sometimes be more the mother. He would pack, as they grew older, he would pack their food for college and make sure that, and you've probably heard some of the fun stories. I heard from one of either your father or Uncle Joe, how he would buy devil dogs and things that I wouldn't want them to eat, and he'd hide it and spirit it away in their packing for school. He had another thought. Hours after having recorded this segment answering Will's question, I remembered some other hobbies that never even occurred to me. One of the really big things from an early age was Poppy's love collecting coins. He used to go downtown Philadelphia on weekends to work in a coin shop. Then baseball card collection was one of his hobbies, and I'm not sure if that was as a kid or started with your father and Uncle Joe. That's something they might have the answer to. Before we were married, or before my time, I know he used to go into the Village in the city in Manhattan and was into hand weaving. Along the way, somewhere along the line, he had developed a collection of miniature liquor bottles. Not that he was much of a drinker. And at one point early in our marriage, he took the bottles after we drank the liquor and he decorated them with a fine line funnel kind of thing. I have a couple of those still. I'll be glad to give you one. And then when your father was an infant, we met friends walking in New York. Andy and Gloria Gladstein, who went to school with Poppy in Philadelphia. They taught us how to play bridge, and they used to come over and play. And that was something we did for several years, probably played bridge pretty much up until a couple of years before we moved to Florida. And in between, he was also a Cub Scout leader. So that's some more that I'm thinking of as I edit these videos. So thanks for asking, Will. As always, it's been a pleasure and an eye-opener.